All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Saturday, noon Eastern Standard Time for MandoLessons Live. This week I'm very excited because I've been tinkering around and some of you caught it in a little private test stream the other day. But I'll play you a little tune and unveil the new feature of MandoLessons Live, which is this screen right here. That way I can show you all a little close-up of what's going on. Let's see, what's it gonna be? There we have it, a little bit of shove that pig's foot a little further in the fire. Hope you're all doing well. We got people all over the place, already over 40 people watching, that is awesome. Got Georgia, Isle of Skye, Minnesota, France, Tel Aviv, Texas, South Carolina, Oregon, Wisconsin, Melbourne, Florida, Texas, Michigan, Minnesota. I think that's everything here. Sorry if I missed you. I'm going to try to keep up with the chat today. It's always a challenge, but always fun. Bill has a question right off the bat. What strings am I using? I am using D'Addario I guess they're now EJ75s. It's their kind of medium heavy set. On this mandolin, I use that kind of medium heavy set, and on the oval hole back there, I just use a 74. I've been playing around with different strings, but usually medium or lighter gauge strings on the old Gibson. Yeah, and in general, nobody's paying me or sponsoring me in this video to talk about gear. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on links in the description, I'll get a little cut of purchases through Amazon at no cost to you. Amazon gives me a small percentage, but I buy my own gear, things like that. But all right, let's see what else we got going on here. Errol says, how long have you been playing? I've been playing since around the year 2000, so 18 years, a little more maybe at this point. Yep, started when I was in middle school, or yeah, I think middle school sounds about right. It's hard to keep track. All right, more folks. We got Idaho, Indiana, Chicago, Mexico, China, Portland, Oregon, Los Angeles, India, Australia. Awesome. All over the world today. That's great. So if you're new here, I'm seeing a lot of new faces, which is great, and some familiar ones, which is also great. The way these work is we got about an hour here. I love to answer questions, whatever people have been working on the mandolin. I'm always loving love the questions that I get and hearing about what everybody's excited about and working on their own mandolin journey. I'll also play some tunes. I'll take requests. I only do traditional stuff. I can't do stuff that's copyrighted, and I can only do stuff that I know, although occasionally I try to start tunes I can't. But yeah, that's about how it works. It's a lot of fun. Love seeing all the chatting in the sidebar and people talking with each other and creating that community. Always makes me happy. More people coming in every second. This is great. Almost 50 people here. Ireland, Oregon, more Oregon. Lots of Oregon today. That's great. Somebody's got a question here. JN says, could you tell me about your armrest? Does it leave any damage on the mandolin? So this right here, I'll use this chance to just go back to this screen here. So this little thing right here, armrest, it can leave a little bit. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. It's got a few dings from where some people are more careful than I, but there's a couple little dings on the edge here, where I've like tightened it and it scratched it a little bit. But for the most part, no, it just kind of sits there, and if you're more careful, it usually doesn't leave a mark, and you could put some more padding in there or something. And I just like it. It kind of gives my arm something to sit on. It gives my hand a nice angle sitting over the fret, over the strings. I started out because the mandolin I had before this one had really sharp edges, and it was actually uncomfortable to play, so I got in the habit of using armrests. So now I like them. They're not a necessity by any means, but I've kind of gotten in the habit of using them. Errol says, how can I improve my rhythm? That is a great question. I think a lot of stuff with the right hand, I really think of mandolin. I was teaching a bluegrass camp and then an old time camp these last 2 weekends, which is why I couldn't be here. But I think in general, playing mandolin is probably at least like 60% right hand. You can do all the fancy stuff in the world with your left, but if your right arm isn't consistent and you don't have that sort of rhythm built in, it's not going to sound as good as it could. And so working on kind of getting that solid right hand rhythm, I think just doing little exercises. I think one of the biggest kind of tools at your advantage is repetition, and just kind of putting in the hours working on just right hand stuff. So you can either put on recordings and just chop along. You don't even need to know the chords. Just mute the strings and be a drummer for a little bit. Looks like my stream is cutting in out a little bit, but hopefully it'll keep up. The power's been going out here a lot lately. But if you just get your right hand going like this, and just like spend the time really getting your right hand and focusing just on your right hand, worrying less about your left hand, you can really, I think my biggest growth in terms of rhythm was joining a contra dance band where I would sit there and just play chords while a fiddler played melody. And I would just do this for like 3 hours a night, 12 minutes at a time. And really, spending all that time working on your right hand is really going to improve everything that's going on. All right, let's see. I'm going to catch up with the chat again. Recovering Bassist has got a request in for Over the Waterfall. That can definitely happen. I love that tune. Glad you've been working on it. Do I play any Reichman? Yeah, Reichman's amazing. I know a couple of his tunes, but I haven't played them in a long time. I should revisit some of that stuff. John Reichman, if you're not aware of him, go look him up. One of the most amazing mandolin players out there. Definitely worth looking into. Michael says, wondering about thinking about minor chord progressions. Example 1 4 6 1. So yeah, something like that. So if you're in the key of G, you've got G is your 1 chord, C is your 4 chord, 6 is your E minor is your 6 chord, and back to 1 is your G chord again. Or you can put a 5 there. 1 4 6 5. 1 4 6 5. Can be any number of things. I think I was just actually scheming about some lessons. I want to put out some lessons where, if you're working on that sort of thing and thinking about whether it's just 1 4 5 or even adding in some minors, things like that, it's really helpful to actually say what chord you're playing or saying what number chord you're playing, whether it's a 1 2 3 4 5 6, etc. and sort of seeing, if you name them as you're playing them, you can sort of start to get a better sense of what they sound like. So when you hear them, you can identify them a little quicker. And that sort of goes the same way with, and it's connected to kind of scale degrees. So if you're in the key of G again, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the 8 is also 1. And just sort of saying the scale degree you're on, that all translates into that Nashville number system with chords of 1, 2, 3 is B minor, 4 is C, 5 is D, 6 is E minor, F sharp diminished is the 7th degree, but you don't run into that mostly in folk music. Working on playing, oh, alright, this is great. Lots of chat here. I'll see if I can keep up. Working on playing solo, trying to add chords and double stops for fill. Thoughts on how to best accomplish that? Definitely. This is from Pee Wee Uke. I think what I would recommend is going to my website and going to the technique and fundamentals page, and there's a whole section on double stops. So that'll definitely get you down the double stop line. Also, check out the songs section of the website, where I kind of take songs, start out with singing the simple melody, then playing the simple melody, playing the chords, and then embellishing it from there with double stops and things. I've got 4 or 5 song series where I really go through that progression, and just practicing taking a song from the bare bones to a fully double stopped and chorded out and rich sounding arrangement is a great way to learn how to do it. Just learn it by doing. Hope that's helpful. Chip says it looks like a McClung, which is this armrest. Yep, it is. And it says he's retired now. I saw that. It seems like he's still putting out some occasionally. I just saw some pop up on Mandolin Cafe, but maybe he's just doing it less frequently now. But I love him, and yeah, I hope they remain available for some time, because they're great. I'll play a little Over the Waterfall and then get back to some of these questions. Key of D. Go back to the other screen here. 1, 2, 3. There it is, a little bit of Over the Waterfall. All right. Keeping on with the questions. This is great. Pelican says, I play and at first it sounds good, but after a while, my right hand starts muting the mandolin behind the bridge. So I think maybe what you're talking about, I'll go back to that other view, kind of getting your hand is kind of getting in front of this bridge section, and you get kind of a muted sound. I think all you need to do there is either, you got 2 options. You can either slide your hand backward a little bit, so you get, which is going to open up that sound again. It also is taking your pick closer to the bridge, which gives it a little brasher of a sound. Not necessarily a bad sound, just a little more kind of biting of a sound. The other option is to just ever so slightly turn this way a little bit. You're just gonna like lift your wrist up. You know, you don't need to overdo it. You don't want to do that. But just taking your wrist ever so slightly off the bridge, you're gonna lose that kind of contact point and float a little bit more. But if you can get used to that, it's the difference between and lifted. Hope that's helpful. Andrew says, a lot of players talk about planting their pinky when they play. Is that something you do, or why would you do it? What's the benefit? So yeah, what Andrew's talking about here is people will plant their fingers, often like right here on the instrument, either just a pinky or a couple fingers, or I've seen even 3. Some people will anchor on the E strings and then kind of get off the E strings when they go to play the E strings. In general, I'm not a huge fan of planting because I think what it does, at least for me, is it really, like as soon as I plant, I lock up all the muscles in my hand and I can feel them get really tense and tight all the way up through my arm, and it really kind of locks up my arm into this position. And it also stops my elbow from being as loose and rotating as much. So if I plant, I can't do it because I don't plant usually, but feels very tight versus so I'm not a huge fan of planting. I think it tenses people up more than it needs to. Also, somebody was talking about the armrest causing damage to the instrument. The mandolin I had before this one had a big raw wooden spot right here because the person that owned it before me planted and did this and scraped and stuff and wore right through the finish down to the bare wood. Doesn't affect the sound, but it does affect the looks of it and the resale value and things like that if that's something that's important to you. Richard says Stephen Foster songs. Unfortunately, a lot of Stephen Foster songs are copyrighted. Let's see what else we got here. Wish I could help you out on that one. Recovering Bassist says I keep on hitting the strings below the one I want quite a bit when picking melody. It's like my downstroke is too long, but if I shorten it, it feels less natural to me. Yep. So that's that's again. I'll stay on this view here. That's the difference between going and. So if we're playing like it's a tune called Grub Springs. If you're looking for that double stoppy sound, not necessarily a bad thing to hit those higher strings. Can create that nice full sound. That said, you do want to be able to turn that on and off. So I think, practicing being super relaxed with your right arm, getting a nice amount of follow through, because that's an important part of tone production is that follow through and not seizing up as soon as you hit the string, but also not hitting more strings than you mean to. And I think playing nice and slow, being nice as relaxed as you can, and really focusing in on that one task of only hitting one set of strings at a time. Bob Barker says Jerusalem Ridge. Unfortunately, that's a Kenny Baker, Bill Monroe tune, also copyrighted. They sneak up on you. I wish I could do Jerusalem Ridge, but I can't. Denise says, when you strum backup, how tightly do you hold the pick? Not particularly tightly. Let's see if I can get this in focus here. So I was just talking about this the other day. When I pick through the strings, there's not quite enough light to see it here. Maybe I'll just do this. So when I pick through the strings, if this finger here is the string, the pick actually kind of pulls my fingers apart a little bit of my right hand. You can sort of see my hand opening up. This is way over exaggerated right now. but you want the pick to have some amount of like flex in your fingers. Not too much, but I always say if you drop the pick, you're doing something right and you get 10 extra points. I don't know where you can redeem those points, but they're there. And you got them for dropping your pick. Because I think having a nice loose grip on the pick, if I grip the pick too tightly, it starts to affect the sound. So nice and loose like I normally try to play anyway. It sounds like this. Whoa. And if I really tighten up, I lose fluidity in the sound. It locks up my wrist a little bit by clamping down so tightly on the pick, and then I lose some dynamics and kind of delicacy in strumming. Yeah, it's very hard for me to really clamp down that hard. But I think in general, if you're clamping down on the pick and holding it really tightly, you're going to be tightening up somewhere else. So just staying, once again, as relaxed as possible. It's going to be to your benefit in the long run. JN says, do you have any tips on playing double stops? Mine usually end up sounding like a mess. Yes, once again, the technique and fundamental section of my website is... I've got a whole, it's probably near the bottom of that page, a double stop series where it's like 4 or 5 videos on how to play double stops, what double stops to play, drone strings, things like that. Check that out. Chip says, is Ukpik Waltz copywritten? It is. It was written by a fellow up in Canada. I can never remember his name. If it comes to me, I'll say it, but I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote Ukpik. But I love that tune though. It's a great one. AC Mullane says, I have trouble hitting strings I'm trying to cross. Do you know what I mean? I don't quite know what you mean. Maybe you're talking about like trying to skip a whole set of strings? Something like that. Let me know if you can give me some more information. That'll be a little easier to talk about what you're talking about. All right, I got a request for Salt Creek. Yeah, I think I can play that tune. I think that's this tune. I can never quite remember. I think that's Salt Creek. It's been probably years since I played that tune. That's a great one. All right, we've got tons of people here, still over 50 people. Welcome to everyone who has arrived since I last said hello. Thank you all for joining us. Matt requests some Railroad Earth. Once again, that's all going to be copyrighted, and YouTube algorithms will pick up on me and get my channel closed down, so I'm going to avoid that, but I appreciate the request. All right, Josh from Alabama. Oh, we got a question from awesome. Kevin from Jerusalem is here. That's great. Chip, thank you so much for the super chat donation. I always appreciate it when people are able to chip in a little bit on the YouTube channel or on my website. Helps me do this sort of thing every week and keep pumping out new lessons every week. Always appreciate it. Thank you, Chip. Hello You says, I'm trying out different picks. What's a good thickness in your opinion? Right now I have one that's 1.6 millimeters. Would you go thinner? Another one I have is 0.3 and it feels a little thin. I was actually just scheming about doing a lesson on different thicknesses of picks. I've actually got 4 different pick thicknesses right here. I'll go through a little thing. I think it's totally personal preference. So got 4 different kinds of picks here. The orange one is the thinnest. It's 0.6. The green one is what, a 0.88. The blue one's about 1. It's a Fender heavy, and this is a Dunlop prime tone at about 1.5. I'll just go through. Maybe you can hear a little difference. It might be a little hard over YouTube, but I'd say, it's in your best interest to, spend a couple bucks on a variety of picks and see which one you like the sound of. So this is the orange one. I've been using this a lot on my old Gibson mandolin, but I use a very different pick on my Ellis that I'm playing right now. So this is the orange pick. Moving on, so that's 0.6, this is 0.8. This is the Fender Heavy, which is around a 1mm pick. It's a slightly different material, which is going to change the sound a little bit, but not as much as the thickness. And last but not least, the 1.5. This is the Dunlop prime tone. There you have it, and you can really hear the difference. Some of those differences are subtle between them, but if I play with the heaviest and then the thinnest, you'll really hear it. So there you go. It's really totally personal preference. I use a bunch of different sizes and shape picks. Just kind of whatever I think fits the instrument and my comfort most. Mr. Cough Drop says hello from Paris. Hello from the United States. He says, I have issues with my left index finger, particularly the knuckle. It gets very sticky, and I've been told there's potential of an issue of synovial fluid in the joint. I'm sorry to hear that. Any ideas about this from you or anyone else here? That might be a question for anyone else here. I don't really know much about the medical side of things. And it sounds like there's kind of something going on in there. I don't know what can be done for that, but it seems like maybe somebody's giving you some thoughts. If it's a question of it could be that something's like tight elsewhere that's really starting to lock up your fingers. But it sounds like maybe it could be something else. So unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot to say on that one. But I hope you get to feeling better. Michael says, sometimes you switch between chords and I see you walk up several individual notes before landing on your next chord. How does that work? Are you hitting specific notes between specific chords? Yeah. So, what I'm doing is just adding a little bass line. It's something a lot of guitar players will do. We can take this little example. We're going to go from a G chord to a C chord. I might have a lesson on this on my website, but I can't remember. In any case, if we're strumming our G chord, etc. So what's going on there is we've got G, then you're going to walk up G, A, B, C, and then you're going to put your C chord down and keep that fifth fret on the G string. It's a little C chop shape, but we're just strumming it. So we can go back down, and then I did this little to a D chord. 0242. So what we're doing is we're kind of walking up and down a scale, up and down the G scale because we're in the key of G, to notes of the other chords. So we're going from G, A, B, C to get to our C chord, and we're going G, A, B, A. And the A is the fifth note, is the 5 of a D chord. Would be D, F sharp, A. So we're just taking that A down here to our regular old D shape. So there's a quick little primer on that. I can't remember if I've made a lesson video on that or not, but I will look at that, and if I haven't, I definitely will make one. Another, my chat just jumped on me. Another snag from Errol says I have my pick catches and then moves in my hand till it's out of position. So yeah, there's a couple things you can try there. One is just playing around with how much your pick is actually going through the strings. If you minimize that amount, it'll catch your pick less. Also, you can just play around. You know, you need to find a balance between being really relaxed, but also not so relaxed that you're constantly dropping your pick, or that it's constantly moving around in your fingers. Often I talk about kind of driving a car. If you're like on the interstate, it requires just a little bit of like constant correction to stay on the road, rather than, you know, getting way off into the next lane and then veering back towards the center. That's not going to help you be a safe driver. Same thing with a pick. You know, you want to always be doing tiny little adjustments so it stays pretty much where you want it. And that'll come over time as you just spend more time with the instrument. The Pelican says, how about an old bluegrass standard you can play that's in the key of B? So B is a great bluegrass key. Play a little 9-pound hammer. I don't know if I'm going to be able to sing in B. B is not my key for being able to sing. It's a little high. This 9-pound hammer. I'll try though. This 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy for my side, for my side. Roll on, buddy, roll slow. How can I roll when the things won't go? It's a long way to Harlem, it's a long way to Hazard, just to get a little brew, just to get a little brew. Roll on, buddy, take a load of coal. How can I roll when the wheels won't go? There's a little bit of 9-pound hammer in the key of B, a great key that I'm honestly not a master at the key of B. I don't play that much bluegrass anymore, and all the fiddle tunes that I know for the most part are in G, D, and A, and F, and C, things like that. So I don't spend a whole lot of time in the key of B. So I was floundering a little bit there, but it's fun. And I should put more time into it. Okay, so AC Mullane, back to your question about playing two strings that aren't adjacent and hitting the in-between string without wanting to. So one thing that'll help you, I think I have this in the technique and fundamentals section of my website on the, I think it's in the right hand technique. I don't know if it's like right hand warm-up exercises or something, but I go through a little pattern of, you're gonna keep that down, up pattern. So it's down on the G and up on the D. Then you're gonna go down on the G and up on the A. Down on the G, up on the E. A. D. You can do the same thing if you like start on the A, you go down on the A, up on the E, and then down on the A and up on the D, which can feel a little awkward at first. Down on A and up on D, and then down on A and up on G. And that sort of thing, you know, getting all those different patterns into your right hand, doing them nice and slow, cutting out the left hand entirely, just focusing on your right hand. It's going to be greatly beneficial to that sort of stuff. I hope that's helpful. Frankie Roberts, thank you, Chip. That's the guy who wrote Ukpik. Cool. Recovering Bassist is also working on the key of B. Hello You says, do you know any Scandinavian folk music? If so, would you mind playing some, like Troll Polska? These live sessions and all your other work are awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate you for joining in. I do play some Swedish stuff and a couple Norwegian tunes. I don't know Troll Polska, and if I do, I might know it, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'll play a tune, great Polska, called Eklunda number 3, I believe. Let's see, it sounds like this. There it is. Eklunda Polska number 3, I believe. Maybe somebody can make sure I got the right number there. I love Swedish tunes, and gotta learn that there's actually a fair number of people up here in Maine that play Swedish music. So I get the chance quite often, which is a lot of fun. A really wonderful kind of music. Richard says, learning Hall of the Mountain King. Super fun. Grieg. Pee Wee Uke says, can you talk about strumming accompaniment in old time? Selecting chords by ear or a tune you don't know. Knowing what kind of key generally in 1, 4, and 5. Oh. Knowing, so you kind of, beyond knowing the key and 1, 4, and 5, what else is going on there? Yeah, so I guess a quick little thing on like old time strumming. There's less of a specific tradition here. With bluegrass, you really have this like kind of very strict almost chop, and you let people do like a little bit of chop in old time, but it's usually not quite as percussive. It's like a little bit of chop, a little bit of strum. I really love the sound of the banjo uke, which you might appreciate, as assuming your screen name is Pee Wee Uke and that you play ukulele as well. There's a really great roll of ukulele where they just, I often call it the wooga chucka. They just kind of, this really groovy, kind of pretty simple, really driving rhythm. And I like to kind of emulate that. You don't often run into sessions with banjo uke, so I try to have the mandolin kind of fill that role. You know, it's like, I would say it's like 50-50 just straight percussion, and the other 50% is just a little bit of, you know, getting that chord value in there. But if you have a guitar player, you know, the guitar is going to be adding the warmth and the depth of the accompaniment. So trying to fill in a little, whatever's missing from the guitar, whether it's a little bit of chop or just a little kind of wooga chucka, like I like to call it, things like that. So in terms of selecting chords by ear on a tune you don't know, I'm a big fan of the method known as trial and error. You know, it sounds like you know about like 1, 4, and 5. So taking a song and just playing it until it doesn't, and playing, you know, taking the 1 chord. So you're in the key of G and you're doing 9-pound hammer. Just play 9-pound hammer and play a G chord until it doesn't sound good anymore. Or whatever song you're working on that's 1, 4, 5. This 9-pound hammer, it's a little too heavy. You get to heavy, and G doesn't quite sound good anymore. So you got trial and error. It's either your 4 chord or your 5 chord, because you were on your 1 chord. So it's either a C or a D. Let's try a D. It's a little too heavy. Yeah, that doesn't really work. Let's try C. It's a little too heavy. And so you can go through like that, play it till it doesn't sound good anymore, then try changing strings. And then beyond 1, 4, and 5, I think you can use the same method to really start hearing those minor chords. So once you get into the habit of like being able to identify like, oh, now we're playing a 4 chord, now we're playing a 5 chord, now it's 1, 5, 1, and are fairly fluent with that, you'll start to pick up maybe some minor chords like, and you'll hear that. And I think ultimately identifying them and saying, okay, I know that I know 1, 4, 5, but what am I missing now? And, you know, I think it can be a helpful thing to, you know, I think a really important part of learning to play music and being kind of aware of where you're at is kind of knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. So if you get comfortable with 1, 4, and 5, as soon as you start hearing minor chords, say, okay, I don't know what that is, but I know it's not 1, 4, 5. It could be a 2 or a 3 or a 6 chord. It could be a 2 major chord. I've got some lessons on that on my website in, I don't know if there's a music theory section or if it's in the technique and fundamentals section or the jazz and blues section. It's over there somewhere. If you look up like 2, 3, 6 in Roman numerals, so I, and VI, it should pop some stuff up over there. Great questions though. Shane says, can you give an example of Cherokee Shuffle? Oh boy, I'm getting behind on the chat. With double stops and ornaments. I also want to keep an eye on the time because got to do our jam along. Yeah, I'll play a little Cherokee Shuffle. How does Cherokee Shuffle go? There it is. No, that's Salt Creek. Cherokee Shuffle. Can't remember how Cherokee Shuffle goes off the top of my head right now, but if it comes up, I will play it. Pelican says, how about a lick in the key of C? Sure. Come up with something here. Oh, I just got a super chat donation. I appreciate it from Recovering Bassist. Thank you very much. Always appreciate the support. Let's go back to the close cam and do a little lick in the key of C. Let's do something like that, a little bluesy. So this would be like... Alright, so something like that. So, starts out on the 6th fret of your A string. So it's 6 on the A, open E, and then 3rd on the A. There's that nice kind of bluesy sound. So far we have 6, open 3, and then it's going to be 5, and they're all on the D string. 5, 0, 3, 0, 1, 2. 5, 0, 3, 0, 1, 2. 5, 0, 3, 0, 1, 2. And then it ends with the 5th fret on the G string. something like that is kind of a nice bluesy way that you could end 9-Pound Hammer in C as the tune of the day. This 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy for my side. For my side. For my side. I guess you would have to leave out that. For my side, buddy, for my side. Yeah, so with that kind of as a ending, you have to leave out that 6th fret, which is a shame because it's nice. But you know, you gotta kind of tailor your licks to the space allowed. So let's see, how could I add that in? It's a little hard because it starts like right on that beat. I guess you could do kind of like a bluesy thing if you're going like. Then your little phrase could be. But take that, you know, chop a little off the front or the end as needed and play around with it. See if you can get that under your fingers, maybe in a couple keys, and throw it out there into, see if you can throw that into a song you're working on. Let's see. All right, I'm way behind on the chat. Don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up this week, but I appreciate all the support. All right, I got another super chat too. Michael Martina, thank you very much for the donation. Always appreciate it. I'm gonna kind of cruise through these chats here real quick. I apologize if I skip over you. I just gotta catch up, make sure I'm kind of getting behind on some of the conversations here. Any tip for improvising strumming patterns? Play an old-time jam. Do you modulate between chord, rhythm, and melody, or do you stay with one or the other mostly? For the most part, Chip, is a quick answer, I mostly just play melody. Or if I'll play like one or the other. So if there's tons of melody and no backup, no chords, no accompaniment, I'll play a little chordal accompaniment. But if there's tons of chord, I'll just sort of do whatever it is needed, whatever there's the least amount of. And usually just stick with whichever one is happening, unless like a guitar player wanders over halfway through. JN says, do you prefer to play tenor guitar or octave mandolin, and why? I love them both. I actually played a concert last night where I played both. It was fun. So I play tenor guitar and octave mandolin in bouzouki tuning, which is G, D, A, just like a mandolin, but down an octave. And then instead of an E as the highest pitched string, I use a D up there. So it's instead of it's kind of more open sounding chords. It's great. It adds a little more depth than a mandolin because it's down an octave. Great for backing up fiddles. I'll pull one of the. I've pulled out one in the past. If I have time, I'll do it today. But I think we're gonna run out of time. But maybe next week. Cool. Awesome. Got a request for the Wren. I'll see if I can stick that in there. Kevin says, I'm working on a couple classical tunes at the moment. Can you play some classical? And what about some classical lessons? I don't play a whole lot of classical. I've learned like a token classical piece here and there, a little bit of Bach. I don't remember any of it at this point. But there are books out there. There's great instructors. There's actually a whole classical mandolin course through, I think it's Artist Works. Maybe it's Peghead Nation. I think Katerina Lichtenberg. Great classical mandolinist. Also, Marilyn Mayer has a great book called The Complete Mandolinist. All that stuff. Super fun. I wish I had more time to do that. But I don't tend to do a whole lot of classical, and I don't feel like I can teach it because I don't play it myself. Kevin says, I play uke too and love playing old-time tunes, especially on the banjo uke. Yeah, I love the banjo uke. Cool. Thank you for the Eklinda Polska. Do you have any Scandinavian folk tutorials on your website? I searched but couldn't find any. I don't think that I do. I always mean to put them up. It's just like I haven't gotten around to it. I don't think I've done any, which is a shame, but I'll add some to my list. They're great tunes. Awesome. Lots of banjo ukes in the crowd. That's great. Cherokee Shuffle. I still can't remember. I'll look that one up and see if I can get that. Go Fish Office says, just found your channel. Excited to get my mandolin out again. Great. I mainly play piano, but I've played a little mandolin in years past. Thanks for your channel. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate you picking up the mandolin again. It's super fun and a lot lighter and more portable than a piano, I might add. But that said, I wish I could play the piano. Pelican 3 says, do you pick melody in the background or just use chord vamping in the background? I'm not sure if you mean like in old time music. I guess if you're talking about old time, you could do both. I think in general, or if like there's a singer and you're, I think, you know, if there's definitely space for playing some melodic stuff. You know, if you're in like bluegrass, it's a little too heavy for my side, for my side. Roll on, buddy, roll so slow. I roll when the wheels won't go. That sort of stuff, like little fills. Definitely great to play, a lot of fun. That said, if there's a bunch of people, you gotta give everybody their turn on the fills, so you don't want to be hogging all the fill spaces. So a lot of the time you're just gonna be chopping. And usually people will break it down into like, the mandolin will take the breaks for a verse, and then the banjo will take a break for the verse. That's at least in bluegrass. Cool, Errol's off to dinner. Thanks for joining. I think what it's time for, and I apologize, Errol, if you're looking forward to this, but it's time to play this week's jam-along tune. I gotta look up what it is, unless Denise can beat me to it, or somebody can beat me to it and tell me what I'm missing, because I can't remember what it was a couple weeks ago. I'll start looking it up, and also keep an eye on the chat. Now I've just got 9 Pound Hammer in my head. Flowers of Edinburgh. Thank you. I'm gonna have to. This one's also not in my head at the moment. I'm having trouble remembering all these tunes. I'm gonna get it up on my screen and make sure I know how to start it for everybody. And then so get your mandolin out and get it all tuned up if you haven't already. I'll get this pulled up so I can actually play along with you and not lead you down the wrong melodic path. Then we'll get into it. All right. There it is. Great tune. All right, so this is a little more notey than other tunes we've done in the past, but we won't do it too much. Thank you, Andrew, for the Super Chat donation. Appreciate it. So I'll go back to a mandolin view here and play a little bit of Flowers of Edinburgh. If you haven't done one of these before, the way it works is we can both play the melody, and then I'll break into chords, and you can play the melody, I'll play chords. We can swap back and forth, so you play chords, I'll play melody. If you need it, there's tabs and standard notation over on my website, MandoLessons.com. Man, my screen's a little choppy today. Let's try this. Pause that. See if that helps. Alright, so Flowers of Edinburgh. So let's play through it a bunch of times. If I'm playing chords, you should be playing melody, things like that. We'll have a good time. Let's play it about that speed. 1, 2, 3, here we go. A part. You play the melody. A2. B part. B2. You play the chords. B part. You play the melody one more time. A2. B part. B2. Everybody play it together one last time. B part. Going out. All right, lovely. Let's get back to the stream of things here. All right, well, thank you all so much. It was a great day. I apologize that I couldn't get to everybody. I loved all the questions, and I apologize if I missed yours. If I did miss yours, come back next time, and we'll do it all again. So, if you haven't been here before, these happen mostly whenever I can on Tuesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time, and always have a lot of fun with them. Thanks for joining in. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and keep playing lots of music. Keep up the good work, and this will be available later on once YouTube processes it. And if with like Flowers of Edinburgh or any of the stuff I was doing, you can slow it down and speed it up to let it match the tempo so you can more easily see what I was doing. Yeah, and thank you all again. Have a great weekend, and see you next time. Bye-bye.